Jesus didn't have a problem with people that's in the streets. He had a problem with religious people.
How can I help anybody when I was not even able to help my own son?
I would never do that. And I became that in a matter of minutes when they took my pain pills away.
And I said, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be.
This is Faith in Your Recovery. I am Randy Davis. Welcome to the battle. Welcome back to Faith in Your Recovery. We're glad you've joined us, whether this is your first time or you've been with us for each of our episodes. We're just glad you're with us today. Have a guest, Monica Grayson. Monica was episode 4, and her voice was there in our intro. It was the single female voice that you heard. Monica, welcome. Good to have you back.
Great to be back.
Thank you. Give us a little background. Tell us now, how long have you been clean?
I just celebrated 7 years sober, June 24th.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, so go ahead. Let's back up. I know you've got a lot of things you're going to share with us here in a little while, folks. We kind of brag about being all things recovery. Well, when we get into the meat of this, Monica has a skill, profession, experience. She's going to share with us a lot of things about harm reduction, about addiction, some of the myths that go with all of that. But we're going to update you again, so you're welcome to go back to episode 4. It was a year ago. It was August 1st, 2022. But give us about 10, 15-minute update here, Monica. Tell us your story of old.
Okay, so I used for 25 years, and it started out with me actually dabbling and getting into like my cousins, beer bottles that they had alcohol in, stealing cigarettes, just whatever. You know, I at an early age, when I look back now, I can see the signs of, I was headed down the wrong road.
What age was that you began all that dabbling, as you worded it?
I'm going to say 10.
Okay.
Yeah, 10, because at 12 it was really going downhill. Like I was stealing, I was doing all kinds of stuff. But I went through like lots of people, trauma, things that really affected me, that hurt people that I loved. And, I started trying to cover that up and numb it with drugs.
Often the case.
Yeah, and I actually was moved from school to school. I said, that in the last podcast, that there was one point where I went to 3 different schools in the same year. So I was always the new kid. I was always picked on. I was always bullied, and I hated it. I hated it so much. So during that time of my life, it was really bad. And so I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to be accepted, and I clearly wasn't going to be accepted in the cheerleading, crowd or the, smart crowd, because I didn't get good grades.
Athletic?
No, not at that time.
Okay.
But I found a crowd that was always off to the side, real sneaky. They were smoking cigarettes. They were doing the drugs, and so that's where I ended up.
Found a home with them because they accepted you. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. And we were all just kind of, I think, for the most part, running from the same thing.
And so how long of a battle was that you were stuck in a place you didn't want to be?
For quite a while. I feel like it just got worse. So 25 years, you know what I mean? Like, it only got worse. So the further I ran from the stuff that was hurting me, the worse I got in my addiction.
And so what was the first lights-on moment for you that gave you hope and promise to move forward and to change where you were in life?
I would have to say it wasn't the first time I got in trouble. It was probably a few down the road, actually. I want to say my last arrest, but it wasn't, because I ended up getting hit with an old charge, an old warrant that was 2 years old. But I was sober at that time. But the last one where I was, heaviest in my addiction is when, I went to jail, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I know I'm going to go through these withdrawals in jail. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm tired of letting my family down. And that's when I had hope after I got past the withdrawals in jail. Then I started seeing some light.
I remember one of our old friends, Brian Montgomery, used to always like to use the term when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yep.
Is that where you were?
Yeah, I was. And I was excited to, be able to sit, in the day room in the jail and not be sick and could play cards. I remember playing cards, sitting there and like, I felt good about it. I wasn't like, well, I got to go do this or I got to go get high. It was a good feeling. And at that point, I was like, I'm going for this.
A new experience to be sober, and you wanted to hold on to it and grow it.
Yep. I was willing to do whatever it took to continue that path.
I'm guessing that was a piece of cake. There was no problem with that. Everything worked perfect.
That's what I was hoping for, but it didn't work that way.
It didn't happen, huh? You're not the first one to say that, okay? What was it like? What was the battle like?
It was dark. It was dark. My whole addiction was dark. I remember looking out windows and looking at the sky and thinking, like, there has to be something more in life than the way I'm living it. There has to be something, and just so depressed and just devastated. And then, the recovery, I've actually been chasing my recovery for the last 9 years. So my first 2 years, I was pretty shaky, but I give, it's because I was learning how to relive, how to act, how to move, how to think, how to feel emotions.
You had never been an adult or
No.
even a teenager before.
No.
So you didn't know what it meant to live that life,
Yeah.
correct?
Not sober.
Yeah,
So, So it was a lot.
Yeah. So what was one of the primary motivators at that time that kept moving you forward?
My kids.
Your kids. Tell us about that. How many kids? What are their present ages?
I have 2 kids. I have a son. His name's Dylan. He's 23. Well, he's about to be 23. I have a daughter, Dixie. She just turned 13. I feel like she's going on 21 though.
Always?
But yeah, for sure. But I wouldn't change it for the world. That's really what always kept me motivated. But the addiction always took over, always.
So did you always have custody of those 2 children, or did you lose that custody at some time?
So I had, I lost count. I tried to count the other day, 6 to 7 CPS cases. And I lost, when I went to Dayton the last time, I'd left my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter at the time.
Now, when you say you went to Dayton, you and I get that, but so our folks will know that was to buy drugs.
Yes.
That was the place to go at that.
The city is what we called it. So we knew
that
it was
the big market.
So, and I never went. I always thought it was the dumbest thing because anybody from Indiana that took the Highway 49 to Dayton always got pulled over, always got busted. So, but, I feel like God had a plan for me and it was my time to be done. So I'd left my daughter with the downstairs neighbor that I didn't know barely and she didn't know at all. And I went to Dayton and we got arrested on the way back. And that's when I went to jail and I didn't see her again for 5 years after that.
She was how old when you lost her?
4.
4. So from 4 to 9,
Yep.
you did not see her.
No, and that was the hardest battle that I ever had to go through because my kids are they mean everything to me, and not having them and then having to deal with that sober, man, it was tough. That was the hardest thing I've ever done.
So do you now have custody of Dixie?
Yes.
And how long have you had?
Yes, absolutely. My cheeks hurt from smiling right now, but yes, I've had her. We're about to celebrate 6 years that I've had her back, and I have complete custody of her. There's no other joint custody, which is amazing. So,
I know you well enough. I know Dixie well enough to know that this season's very special to you guys. This is ball season.
Oh, yeah.
And the 2 of you can often be found at the Diamond. You were telling me how many leagues, what's she involved with?
She really grew this year. She's been in it since T-ball, but this year I really seen a change in her. Like, she played every position. She had 3 ball leagues this summer that she played with, 2. There was a senior league, which is 18 all the way up to 18. So she's 13 playing with 18-year-olds. And then she had a junior league in a smaller town, and then she played for who we normally play for a junior league. So she had 3 leagues this year, and she got championships for one of them.
So Dixie's doing quite well, and so's Mom.
Yes, and she actually hit a home run over the fence this year. I was so excited.
And Dylan, tell us where he's at in life and what's going on with him.
Dylan, he's 23. He's going through, life and trying to deal with life, but he went through a little bit of, I'd say about a year of his substance use, where he was dabbling in meth and fentanyl, and that was a hard time for me too. That was the first time that the direction was turned from me to someone else. Like, it was always about me. It was always about my addiction, my recovery, and then it wasn't. So that was the first time I felt shaky in my recovery, because I was so scared that I was going to find my son dead, or I was going to have a cop knocking on my door telling me that he had overdosed and died. So, my thoughts started thinking about, I just need to have a drink so I can sleep, so I can quit thinking. And so that's when it was pretty shaky for me at that point.
That would have been a scary time. You weren't used to, the clean lifestyle.
Yeah.
Raising a teenager, one having his own issues.
Yeah.
But he's doing well now. And I won't say all's good, because I'm not sure it ever is all good. But he's doing well. And that's
He gained some charges, during his addiction, like, me and a lot of us do. But he completed his house arrest successfully. He actually has a construction job. He's certified in some things, so he's doing well.
Hooray for him! Hooray for you! And helping to turn that around.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Let's jump forward. If folks want to pick up on more of the details of your story, go back to episode number 4 of Faith in Your Recovery, and you can get the whole story, because the direction we're about to head, a year ago, you couldn't head to where we are. You just didn't have the experience, the knowledge, everything that goes with that. So tell the folks where you are professionally at this time in your life and what's going on educationally, and let them hear.
Yeah. I have a lot going on. I like to keep my hands and feet in a lot of things, and education and knowledge, continuing to gain knowledge is important. I actually had an IU Health. I work at J, the outpatient behavioral office, and I just had a 3-year anniversary. So I've been there for 3 years, and I've grown and learned so many things being there. I have my certification in peer recovery coaching, and then I also just gained another college degree, but it's an associate's in my human services. So I've got a lot going on. I'm Narcan trained, which means I can, train groups of individuals how to administer Narcan.
We want to talk about Narcan here in just a little while, but when you say you're employed at IUJ, folks, that's J County Hospital located in Portland, Indiana, should you question the geography of all of that. So, Monica, what's your understanding of addiction? How would you explain that to somebody who just doesn't have a knowledge of it?
Yeah. Sometimes I have individuals that come in that are seeking assistance with a substance use disorder that don't understand their own addiction. So I try to explain to them, as well as people that don't have a clue, that, sure, it starts out as a choice. I call it the disease of choice. So if you continue to do that over and over again, then it's going to take over, and it's also 50% heredity and 50% environment. When you put those two things together, it's bound for an addiction, and it just becomes to where it takes over everything. Normally we would need water and air and food to survive. All of that stuff is pushed down, and addiction, the drug is put in the very top of that. We don't care if we drink.
It becomes the priority of your needs.
And it actually,
it's irrelevant.
Yeah, it actually changes your brain, all of it. I mean, it changes
Addiction changes your brain.
Yes.
It attacks the thinking, changes the thinking. We sit around and say, I don't know what they're thinking. I'm guessing they don't either.
No.
Because it has destroyed some of those brain cells that help you make better choices, and it has become your controlling choice.
Yeah.
Maybe not what you wanted, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's there. How much does willpower play into this?
I mean, you can think about willpower like in your mind, like I'm going to do this. I'm done after this shot, or I'm done after this, this pill, but it never happens.
So how many times do you think you thought, this is my last one, I'm going to stop after this? Could you count the number
No,
of times?
absolutely not. I couldn't count the number of times in one day.
And that's probably
Yeah.
the case for many who are in addiction.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a chronic brain disease that has to be fed with more of the drug.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yep.
Yeah. Can it be cured? Can addiction be cured?
No, it can go into remission like other diseases, but it has to be managed. Like I have a program that I work. Everybody's program is different. What works for me will not work for them, but you continually have to do something for your recovery.
So just like diabetes or heart condition or cancer, you can manage it. You can't necessarily cure it,
Right.
or you cannot cure the addiction.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. We've already talked about the changes in the brain. I like what you said, because I too believe it is certainly a disease that's set off by a choice. And then it comes, and you said it in so many words, critical for survival. You talk about water and air and those elements we must have.
Yeah.
It's a must have
Yeah.
for folks once they get to a certain spot in their addiction.
And we actually go a long time without any of that stuff, without food, without water. Of course we have air, but we would, if we could choose between drugs and air, we would choose the drug before the air.
Yeah, understandable. Okay, so you've talked about addiction, given us a description. What does recovery? How would you define recovery? What does it mean?
So recovery is moving to moving forward to a better state of living and health, and just everything is better from the way you were living. So, I never ate, I never took care of myself, I never went to the doctor, I never did anything to take care of myself. So anything that helps you to be better, to feel better, to, all of that stuff mentally, emotionally is recovery. So anything that you were doing before that was hurting you, it doesn't have to be just substances. Anything that you were doing that was hurting you, now that you're not doing it, that's recovery.
So improved health, well-being, and
Yes.
quality of life,
Yes.
all fit within that. Okay. Where do you see our biggest issue with drugs today, categorically? What kind of drugs, or how does that fit in your thinking and your experience?
Well, for sure, fentanyl. Fentanyl is terrible. And I tell people all the time that I couldn't imagine, I wouldn't be here today if fentanyl was on the streets when I was using like it is now. I would be dead, So fentanyl is just, it's what's taking everybody out. It's what's killing everybody.
So can you define fentanyl? Tell the folks a little bit about what it is.
Fentanyl, it's synthetic. It's made in a lab. So it's pure poison. It's poison.
I've read that it's 50 to 100 times more powerful than morphine,
Yes.
which is oftentimes one of the strongest drugs they'll give us for pain in the hospital or late in life to help ease that passage or anything else. And, the illicit fentanyl that's used to be put in opioids or any place else, it's become very commonplace. You used the word in the very beginning, you dabbled. I don't think you can dabble today
No.
because it can easily be one and done. If fentanyl's involved with that, and certainly if carfentanil is, which is stronger yet than fentanyl.
Yeah.
And so there's a great danger with all of that. I think it's considered fentanyl is as the the number one driver behind today's overdose health crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what can we do for a friend? I just threw the word in there, overdose. What can we do for a friend who's overdosed? Or a stranger? I would hope we'd still step up to the plate.
Yeah, absolutely. So if, somebody's overdosed,
what are the signs of overdose?
the signs of an overdose is, they may be turning white or purple or blue, like their fingernails, their lips. They may be clammy to the touch. They may be unresponsive. They might be making gurgling sounds, like choking and real raspy breathing. So if you see that, it's really important to give them Narcan, and we'll talk about that too, but to give them Narcan regardless, of what they think is happening.
Hold on to that word, folks. Narcan, or also known as naloxone.
Yeah.
And we will go back to that and tell you a little more of it in a moment or two. We're in a sad state here in our United States. The statistics say you're more likely to die from an overdose than a car wreck or gun.
Mm-hmm.
That it's the number one killer of so many, and that we've got to make some changes, and that's
it's
why
scary.
we're here talking about it in part. Absolutely. Okay. Tell our folks a little bit about some of the telltale signs they might watch for in a loved one, a child, little pieces of evidence that they may be using drugs of some type. What might they see laying around, or just some visuals?
So, like with me and my addiction, if somebody was to walk into my house, you would find, burnt spoons or spoons gone completely. I remember one time my mom was complaining. She's like, "Where's all my big spoons at?" And I was just like, "Oh, because I had taken them." Pop cans, we would use the bottom of pop cans to fix our dope in and cook it in. So you can find halves of those, like a pop can cut in half. You can find water bottles with the caps or just water setting around. And then you can, I know today, like with the kids and my daughter being 13, things have changed a lot. So there's different things now than it was, when I was using.
We're always going to try to stay a step ahead of being caught,
and
right?
they're sneaky. So there's some things happening where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they had that hid there, or so.
Yeah. So what are some of the signs that we might see by looking at someone that there's possibility they're on something? If I look you in the face or see you, what? Yeah.
Well, it depends on, the substance, but, we're talking about fentanyl and opioids. If you look them in the face and you look at their pupils, and if you can't see those pupils and they're constricted, they're most likely on an opioid.
Go ahead and say that again, what you just said. I want to make sure people get that with the pupils.
So when you are under the influence of an opiate, fentanyl, heroin, stuff like that, your pupils will constrict to where you can't even see the black part of your eye. And so that's a real telltale sign. People will talk real slow and real slurred, like just kind of like that. And then that's a telltale sign that they're on something that's sedating them. Heroin, fentanyl. They'll sometimes scratch their face a lot, rub their nose a lot because it makes you itch. Some of the other things is just if you see them wearing long sleeve shirts in the summertime, and I have to back up on that because our kids do that a lot. Our kids are wearing hooded sweatshirts in the summertime, and I'm like, why? So, That's not always the case, but
Sure,
if
can be.
Yes, if you see somebody that looks, like they're lacking in their hygiene and they just don't look well, they have sores all over their face, and they have a long sleeve hoodie on, they're probably trying to
Why would they have long sleeves on?
to cover the track marks and the scars from putting the needle in their arm.
Track marks.
Yeah.
That's from putting the needle in.
Yeah.
It's that constant incision that can become infected or
Yep.
any number of
Yep.
things.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What's one of the best ways to approach someone when we question, I'm afraid Johnny or Susie, whatever the case may be, is into some things they shouldn't be in. How should I approach them?
Well, definitely not in an accusatory manner. If you see something that's off, then chances are there's, if it's somebody like your kids or, a loved one, you're going to notice something's different. And it's okay to have that open conversation with them politely and calmly and nicely and say, I've noticed some things. Are you doing okay? Is there anything you would like to talk about? Without screaming and hollering and pointing the finger and accusing, because that doesn't work.
There's a right way to discuss anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are into it, they're going to become confrontational.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're going to go into denial, and you're not going to get anywhere with the
No.
wrong approach in the beginning.
Right. And for me, if I come with that attitude to my kids, then they're never going to come to me when they have a problem. So I try to leave that door of communication open without fear being there. Yeah, you might get, a consequence or whatever, but come to me, and talk to me and let me know. And, I don't want them to be afraid to call me. I want the first person for them to think of that they want to call if something happens is mom.
There's nothing easy about it, is there? From
No.
any side, their
Right.
side or the
Yeah.
parent loved one's side.
Yep.
Should it be a spouse or someone like that even? Let's go back. We told the folks we'd get into this. Let's talk a little bit about naloxone, about Narcan. Narcan's more the generic term for naloxone. Tell us about Narcan, some of the myths you're aware of, how it should be used, how to acquire it. Let's talk Narcan.
So Narcan, one of the myths that just pops up in my head right now is that, a lot of controversy of, it's free, people don't have to pay for that. Why do we have to pay for insulin? It's not free. Somebody is donating money to pay for those Narcan.
So it's getting paid for somewhere,
yes.
just maybe not
Yes.
for me
Yes.
as a user of the Narcan.
Yes, we can get access to it for free, but somebody is paying for that Narcan. Absolutely. Narcan is we have it in 3 different ways to give it. There's a nasal Narcan that comes in a 4 milligram nasal. It's almost like if you had a cold, a little plunger that would go in your nose and you just kind of push it up and it's a mist. Then we also have you can do it intermuscular, but we usually stick with the 4 milligram nasal Narcan because it's easier and people aren't as scared of it. And if you see somebody that's overdosing, you can give them that Narcan regardless of what's really going on. They might be overdosing. They might be having a heart attack. We don't know. But you want to give them that Narcan regardless because you don't have time to decipher, what's going on with that person.
Well, what's going to happen if you give Narcan to somebody and it happens to be their heart or it's something totally other than drugs, opiates, or anything else? What's it going to do to them?
Absolutely nothing.
So the use of Narcan carries no, I'm going to use the word validity to someone who's not on drugs.
Yeah.
What if it's a child? What if it's 4-year-old
Yep.
who gets a hold of it? And
Anybody can have it. I tell my daughter, my daughter knows how to administer Narcan. Like she knows every step, doesn't miss one. I've told her, if you ever find me unresponsive or unconscious, get Narcan and give me Narcan.
Well, tell the folks what the steps are. I know earlier you said you're certified, I think was the word, for Narcan training. Give them a little training right now.
So Narcan, what it's used for, when somebody takes an opioid, such as heroin or fentanyl, and it's too much for them, the opioid receptors, the drug covers those. And so it's too much, and we have to knock that opioid off the receptor.
So the receptor's located in the brain.
Yes.
And then that...
And then the Narcan knocks that off of there so they can, because fentanyl slows your breathing and your central nervous system and all of that. When you give them Narcan, all of that stuff comes back. You're able to breathe, things are, speeding up again.
So it clears the brain.
Yes. It clears the substance off of the opioid receptor.
Okay.
But it's only for a short period of time. Narcan lasts for about an hour. So it's important that you call 911 first and foremost before you do anything. That way you have, medical coming to, if they need another dose. And there's several people that I know of that's had to take 10 and 15 nasal Narcans to just come back to, to breathing.
Well, plus the idea of calling 911 immediately, they can even guide you through the steps as you're trying to administer the Narcan.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have 911 coming and you only have one Narcan on you, great, give them that Narcan, and 911 will be on their way. And then you start, there's actually directions inside the package that kind of helps you step through it. But a lot of the times in a situation like that, you don't have time to sit there and read directions like you're putting something together. There's a lot of anxiety and nervousness.
You can almost tell by looking at the nasal spray how to operate.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're not going to go wrong.
No. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's a right position for the body to help you accomplish the maximum.
Yes. So if you find someone, you lay them flat on their back, you ask them, hey, are you okay? If they don't respond, then you go for everything we just said. You will open the package, you'll insert the nozzle into the nose all the way up until your fingers touch the bottom of their nose. And then you will push some of them have a red plunger and some of them have just white. But you'll push that plunger all the way up until it stops. And then you wait 2 to 3 minutes. But in this time, you will roll the individual in the recovery position. So that is on their side with their knee lifted up. That way they don't, if they vomit, they don't aspirate and they don't choke on that.
So like sleeping on your side with your knee lifted.
Yep.
Okay.
And then if they are not breathing and in like 2 to 3 minutes, then you roll them back on their back and you give them a repeat dose and the other side and the other nostril.
The other nostril.
Yes.
That was going to be my next question. Do you continue with the same one or change back and forth?
Because of the Narcan only lasts in an hour, with fentanyl, that stuff is so, it's so strong and so potent that a lot of the times, like in our healthcare, like the emergency rooms or whatever, they will get released back to the streets, and they think that they're like going out and using again and overdosing when they're actually not. They're just re-overdosing because the first Narcan had worn off.
The original overdose is returning, so to speak.
So it's important to have multiple Narcans on you, but to have 911.
How do you acquire Narcan? What's some of the ways you can make that happen?
So in Indiana, every state's different. So in Indiana, you can get online. You can go to overdoselifeline.org. That's where I get my Narcan sent to me. And if you go on that website, you can look up and search like where are Narcan boxes, where are vending machines. It's a vending machine that has, like you would have chips in it, but it doesn't. It has Narcan in it. You just push the button, the number, whatever it is, and you get a free Narcan. I know that there's one in Ball Memorial Hospital in the emergency room when you walk in, or like right there at the emergency room. There's one in our IU Health Hospital when you walk in at Jay County. There's some in our towns, like in Dunkirk by the city building. But you can find all of those addresses and locations and a small picture clip of where they're located.
And these can be freestanding units. They could be attached to a wall. They can be the vending machine type, as you're mentioning. And I heard the word in there, you said it's free to be able to get. Yeah,
it's free. All you have to do is kind of fill out a form. It basically depends on how many that you're getting. Their biggest concern, like if you ask for too many, they're afraid that they're going to expire before they're able to be given out.
How long are they basically good for?
I think 4 years,
Okay.
if I remember right, but don't quote me on that.
Sure.
But it's a good amount of time.
Okay, and you can get the same information off
Yep.
the internet in different
Yep.
ways, but Overdose Lifeline
Yes.
is an excellent place to go.
Yes.
Some people are going to have the concern, what if I do something and I get sued because I did it? Talk to that a
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, we have a lot of individuals. It happens that are left. I have a great friend that her brother, was left behind because out of fear of they were going to get in trouble for the overdose, and they just take off or they'll dump the body, and so actually, overdose the the creator for Overdose Lifeline is Justin Phillips, and she, her son died of an overdose, and so she created Aaron's Law and the Good Samaritan Law. So that protects anybody. What it says is that you can carry naloxone, Narcan, and give it to anybody and not get in trouble. You can get it with a prescription of opiates, but if you are with somebody or around somebody and they overdose, you're supposed to act in good faith, and you are protected under some, not all, criminal and civil charges.
And that means you must call 911.
And you
as
have
a
to stay
part
with
of the-
them.
And stay with
Yep.
them.
And if you get on Overdose Lifeline and look, you can actually see, what it breaks it down for the laws and who's protected and.
We've danced around to a phrase that carries a lot of stigma today, harm reduction.
Mm-hmm.
That's what naloxone is about. It's a temporary fix to help you get through to another day to where you have a chance to continue to fight the battle. Tell us about harm reduction as a whole, Monica.
So harm reduction, if we want to kind of put it in light, harm reduction that's not addiction recovery related would be sunscreen to protect us from ultraviolet rays for skin cancer, bicycle helmets to protect our head if we were to crash, seat belts in a car. That's all harm reduction. Anything to reduce harm to the body with a behavior that we're doing. So if we switch that to like addiction and recovery, harm reduction is Narcan, like we said, that allows someone to continue to live, to see another day. And then we have fentanyl test strips, and I'll explain what fentanyl test strips are. You can also get those on Overdose Lifeline. Those are little strips, almost like strips that you would test your pool chemicals with and see if everything is the way it's supposed to be. But instead, you test your dope, your drugs, and to see if there's any trace of fentanyl in there. So if they are able to see that, then they can, talk to whoever they're with or have somebody watch them while they're shooting up or, kind of prepare that, hey, this might be.
Does all of this give people more permission to use? Does it take away the danger? What about, I can get the naloxone free. I can get these strips. I can get this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I shouldn't have any fear. I can just use as I want to. Yeah?
No, I hear that all the time where, it's like we're just might as well just give them the dope and do this and that. If I would have had a lot of the things that are offered today, because it's, it's not the elephant in the room anymore. It's being talked about. If I would have had what we have today back then, I might not have contracted hepatitis B. We have a needle exchange, programs and stuff like that. I know we don't have them locally where I'm from, but, that does not encourage people to continue to use. It's statistically proven that somebody is more likely and has found recovery and treatment in places like that where they can, actually live to continue on and ask for help. It might not be that day that they ask for help.
We give them another chance.
Yes, we give another chance, yeah.
They have to take the chance, but at least we help provide it.
Right.
Awesome. Wow. I love all this information. I'm sure folks would too. Anything else you want to add as we get ready to wrap up here, Monica?
No, I don't think so. The one thing that I think about, though, is if you have a bias or you don't agree with something, try to have an open mind, because it doesn't change the fact that people are dying, and we need to help them find recovery. And we can't do that if we're being judgmental and we're being biased and we think one thing when it's really not the case.
Imagine it's 20 years and somebody's standing there debating,
Exactly.
do I use naloxone or not?
Yeah.
Do I or don't
Yeah.
I? We know what we want them to do. I hope we take the same attitude with others.
Yes, for sure.
Well, thank you. Folks, I hope this has been a good thing for you. I know it has for me, and I believe this is another way we can touch change and save lives through faith in your recovery. Hey, final word here. Check out our new book, Recovery Conversations with Randy Davis, available at recoveryconversations.org. It's filled with personal life experiences, the struggles, the problems, the losses, and the victories. We believe it can be that go-to book for you, and I'm just thinking this episode right here will end up in a future volume. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your time. God bless. Monica, thank you too. It was
Thank
good
you
to
for
have
having
you.
me again.
Yeah, thank you for sharing so much. Stay in the battle. God bless. Amen.